Hello, I'm Radagast. This is Global Mission of Peace TV with Mystic View, and I am joined as always by my co-host, Shelley. Hi, Shelley.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
So we're going to kind of cover or discuss a topic that for those who watch YouTube and follow kind of what's hot, one of the hottest things that's come out is something I guess that come out in the within less than 2 weeks, I believe, probably 10 days is more correct. And the original title, which was narrated by somebody with clearly a Russian accent, is There are no forests on a flat earth, wake up. There is now, apparently that one's been pulled, and there's now kind of an English, somebody who narrates it, the same footage, and I think they're just kind of repeating the words, but without the Russian accent, which for some reason people found difficult to listen to. I really don't have trouble. I mean, some people say Keshi is hard to understand with his Iranian accent. I don't have any problem hearing him, but maybe it's because I speak good English.
I love listening to everybody's accents.
Yeah, so I mean, I recognize my own language. So I mean, even when it has an accent, I know, I kind of got an idea of where they're going with it. And the interesting thing is, many people might know in the alternative community, there's a whole flat Earth meme that has really put a wedge in our alternative community, where there's people who have embraced it not so much as a concept, but as dogma. And if you don't embrace it, then somehow you're a government shill or you're brainwashed. I mean, so we've kind of lost a portion of the community who thinks that the community that might entertain that the earth is round as like not being worth talking to. Now, based on I listened to some people replying, now because of the original title, because now it's No Forests on Earth. So that they got rid of the flat, and I don't think he was saying the earth was flat. I think he was saying it's been scraped flat, and compared to the ancient forests, which we're about to discuss, that compared to what the earth used to look like, now it's almost flat as far as the way it looks. But because he had said flat earth, he attracted the flat earthers, and a lot of them were quite disappointed because he didn't go on and on about the earth being flat, and that's what they live for. Max Egan has also spoken about this division, and I tried to listen to, I got made about a half an hour through a round table of flat earthers discussing it, and based on what I saw, I'm not sure that the loss of the flat earthers has been a great loss to the community. The cognitive ability demonstrated, at least by this panel, was limited. And again, and I've always said, I don't really care the shape of the planet. I mean, I can make music and travel on whatever shape the planet is. Anything that's important to me, and I hope is important to you, can be done on whatever shape the planet happens to be. So when people kind of divide into camps over what the shape is, they're not paying attention to the fact that we have financial problems, we have humanitarian problems, we have governments out of control. We have, the possibility of a major kind of outbreak in the Middle East happening, and they want to talk about the shape of the planet. I mean, we have real issues to focus on. So, I know, Shelley, you've watched at least most of it. I mean, to watch most of it is to be on the page of where they're going with this. What did you think of it?
Well, right away, what I see is the relationship of trees, regardless of their size, to the cosmology, to astronomy, to astrology, to the human brain. And I see it as consciousness, one way or the other. So we're talking about some very large trees that have been spoken of in our sacred texts, in our ancient mythologies. And they are, if we even look at the root word dendru or dendrite, that's talking about the neurological processes of the human brain. And we can easily pull up some pictures that look identical to trees. But anyway, you carry on. Let's talk about maybe the silica or the carbon
Yeah,
implications.
I'm working my way there.
We're getting there. All right.
So so anyway, what is really remarkable about this, and let's say opening up maybe some genetic memory, and as Shelley said, like for me, and we kind of spoke to this before we pre-show, was about the difference in if what we're going to be showing what look to be gigantic trees and what their remnants might be, and how they've been classified different by geologists. But we're talking about trees that are like kilometers wide.
What was it? 8,800 miles? Is that correct?
That was height.
Okay, so then it was 800 miles across diameter.
Well, that would be like a really large one. Something like Pikes Peak is maybe a kilometer or so across.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the main ones that was used in the this video. What the quote of 800 miles wide was from the Vedic texts.
Oh, right.
Which I'm going to read from in a moment. But like what Shelley's saying, when she sees it as consciousness, I'm thinking, as soon as she said that, I mean, a light went off in me, and it was just as if like the way trees used to be, these ginormous trees, in many ways, I feel is how our consciousness used to be when we were cosmic. And now these smaller trees are kind of representing what has happened to us in our consciousness. When we look at megalithic building and the fine sculpting of, I mean, these huge, like even bowls and this exquisite carving that the quackademics is something that I think Sylvie in the New Earth series has called the academics who quack about what they think they know. And so I really like the term quackademics. And, they're trying to say that people did this, with hand tools. And meanwhile, the polishing on this is something to rival modern stuff, except that the scale seems to be even larger than modern things could do. And so, I mean, to me, one time human beings possessed great consciousness, and we communed with nature at every level. I mean, not only were we connected to the Creator, we were connected to the beings that were created in creation. And that would be the elementals, nature spirits, everything that actually shaped the earth before we joined the earth. And that allowed us to do marvelous things because, we were able to move very large things because we understood what we now call gravitational forces. And there might in fact be gravity, but even that is open to looking at. So, I mean, I really loved Shelley's perspective about, that there's a message in the scale. And I really got that the current trees, the smallness of them compared to what appear to be really, really large trees, are part of our consciousness. As we shrank in consciousness, so did the surroundings and the other things in nature. I'm going to read a few quotes that come out of the Vedas. Now, anybody doesn't know, I mean, the Vedas cover different topics, but some of them are really scientific. And some of the earlier translations didn't do justice to the language. I've read some translations of the Vedas that are like reading scientific text, but these are people who learned Sanskrit, who were scientists, and then translated them properly. I wish I had access to those right now. But these are 3 quotes from the Vedas. And one of them is this: standing like flagstaffs on the summits of these 4 mountains are the mango tree, a rose apple tree, a kandamba tree, and a banyan tree. These trees are calculated to have a width of 800 miles and a height of 8,800 miles. And they have it in the original Sanskrit terms of 100 yojanas and a height of 1,100 yojanas. Their branches also spread to a radius of 1,100 yojanas, and that's 8,800 miles, okay? Suspend the incredible aspect of these things. Next one is on Kumuda Mountain, there was a great banyan tree, which is called Satavalsa, because it has 100 main branches. From those branches come many roots, from which many rivers are flowing. Another quote from there is, the residents of the material world who enjoy the products of these flowing rivers have no wrinkles on their bodies and no gray hair. They never feel fatigue, and perspiration does not give the bodies a bad odor. They are not afflicted by old age, disease, or untimely death. They do not suffer from chilly cold or scorching heat, nor do their bodies lose their luster. They all live very happily without anxieties until death. And then the last quote is, similarly, the fruits of the jambu tree, which are full of pulp and have very small seeds, fall from a great height and break to pieces. These fruits are the size of elephants. Okay, so those are 4 quotes from the Vedas. And those who, I mean, the Vedas have, anybody who really looks into them, especially their scientific ones, they had our modern science, including our quantum physics, down long ago. And also the history in the Vedas about mankind goes back millions of years. All right. So now some people might want to just discard that. I can't discard it. It just doesn't, first of all, it doesn't intuitively feel right. What do you think about the Vedas?
Well, I think the Vedas, like some of our other ancient and sacred texts, have provided long-standing information for us. And information, as you know, is what actually carries this knowledge forward that we tap into. And it's not something that's lost to us simply because it was written so very long ago. That's stuff, this is information that's embedded in our DNA. And I think that's what's so fascinating about this subject of trees, because what we're looking at here is maybe a hologram or a diagram exactly of the dendrites, or the information loaded neurological processes. And that's exactly the root word, dendrite.
Right.
That's the Greek word for tree, or the root for the word tree.
Right. And actually dendrites look like tree roots.
They sure do. And so does dark matter. So does anything in the heavens. You can check out NASA pictures and pictures from the Hubble, and also Stedman's dictionary. That's a medical dictionary. That they all show the identical pictures.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a hint.
I agree.
I think that the Vedas have been dropping us hints, have saved some hints for us.
So some of the I mean, I really, again, please look up. Well, let me just kind of call up a tab here, so we can see some of what this is. I'm going to screen share. And actually, this is a little forum called The One Truth that I belong to, and so does Shelley. And okay, so Shelley, can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So this shows there are no forests on Earth. Again, the original thing was on flat Earth. I don't think I can really do full screen here. No, it's not available here. But I'm trying, oh, sorry, I've scrolled up another one here. Okay, so what you're going to see here is a tree stump. Okay, so please keep this in your thing. And let me see if I can find the other image I'm looking for. Here we go. So here is, this is Pikes Peak. All right, now if you see the morphology, you'll see these striations, which are basalt crystals. Okay, we're not going to say they're anything other than basalt. They really are. Classical geology says that these are the crystals that form. That these are actually old volcanoes, and that the lava in the middle hardened into these basalt crystals, and then the softer outside, which as far as I know is made of the same stuff, but for whatever reason, that it eroded, leaving what were basically volcanic plugs. And so that what we're seeing are the insides of hardened lava inside the cones of volcanoes. The cones eroded and left this there. And I studied geology in high school for a year to avoid physics. And so this is, I mean, the regular geological theory of this is something I have not only learned and studied, is also something that when this first came up, I went like, ugh. Now I'll get a little more into this. And because he was showing the morphology of looking at a tree stump and that the actual cells are hexagonal. Now, basalt crystals are hexagonal, not perfect like a honeycomb, but the kind of less symmetrical, but still six-sided hexagonal shapes that you see in trees when you look at them. So in other words, there are these kind of tree formations that grow up that support the tree. And so, I mean, the morphology is really pretty much the same, or the shape, if in case I'm using terminology that people don't understand. And so that's where I was going, okay, well, nature tends to work, you know, they have a template, and so you're going to see duplications. But then he showed a close-up of a basalt crystal that was flaking off. Like, in other words, there was like a cell wall on the basalt. And that's when I said, I'm willing to consider this. Now, please understand, when I say willing to consider it, doesn't mean I'm buying it per se, but I'm willing now to entertain that there might be something to what this video discusses, that this little picture that you're seeing here is in fact a tree that was cut. Now, even that, the kind of technology that would allow something that large to be cut like a modern tree is, okay, remember, I'm going to switch over here. See the shape of this tree here? Okay, clean cut. Now we're going to come back to Pikes Peak. All right. Now, if it would, I mean, really, this is the same shape. Even the way it comes down, this is how roots come down here. And I don't know what the inside of a volcano looks like, but I don't know that it splays out. And the other thing about the idea of these being volcanoes that have eroded is that we either have full volcanoes or we have these, but we have no volcanoes in the process of eroding with, like, say, half a plug sticking out of them. So that's where I find that theory isn't quite supportive. We either have volcanoes or we have old volcanoes, but we have no transitional aspects of these. And given that volcanoes have all kinds of ages, I would wonder why there aren't like half eroded volcanoes with half of these plugs sticking out, showing that these were in fact plugs and not trees. All we have is this or volcanoes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, Pikes Peak is actually one of the smaller scales of examples. I mean, if we want to go to an extreme, I'm going to scroll down here, on here. Okay, here's another, I mean, I'll get back up to that one. Okay, here's the Tibetan Plateau. Flat, you know, like a table. Flat like a cut tree, like we see here. All right, so this is the Tibetan Plateau from space, and look at the morphology, the edging on it. Okay, and here's a tree trunk cut. Now, please hold these images together. Look at that. Look at that. Now, I'm not saying that it is what we're entertaining, but this person posited a theory, and then you look at these various examples of whether it's Pikes Peak and a smaller tree stump, or this look at the Tibetan Plateau and this, and then you read in the Vedas that there were 800-mile long, thick, wide trees. And you might wonder, and you know, think of where India is, and the Himalayas are just to the north of India. And you might wonder, maybe this is what they're talking about, and this is one of those trees that was cut down. Now, again, think of the technology to cut this stuff down. And that's when we start saying, people go, oh, ETs did it. Well, I know Graham Hancock has said he's a little tired of everything that's magnificent being attributed to ETs. Because how about that we were once magnificent, and this is almost like the scale of our magnificence. And we went from this size tree to this size tree, and that's the size of our consciousness today. All right. So anyway, I want to scroll up a little bit further and then show this, where this is like kind of like a floor somewhere. And again, look at this. These are the kind of what I'm calling imperfect hexagons, but they're basically hexagonal in shape, and this is how the mud dried. I mean, if you look at the morphology of trees and the shapes of their cells, this is what they look like at a more microscopic level. So, I mean, the thing is, this person opened up a dialogue. This is what it is, opened up a dialogue. A dialogue is a conversation. We're not talking about, these are the facts. No, this is the conversation. And so this is the conversation that Shelley and I are having today is there maybe something truly, true here that we might want to play with? Oh, wrong window here. Now, the other thing, one of the considerations would be, let me stop sharing for a second. Or maybe you completely. One of the considerations here would be gravity. I mean, really, a tree that size, you would think, would sway in whatever winds there are, and the amount of mass that would kind of bend over, you would think that it was just like that much weight would just create a problem. Now there's so much to cover here. This is going to be because of time constraints. This will not be the full treatment that might have gotten done. So we have this gravity concept. Now, one of the things that has been brought up is the size of dinosaurs. Now, we know we have their skeletons to show the size that they were. And there are people who are saying, with gravity, current gravity, the way it is, that there would be no way that these bodies could be supported. There's no way that a Diplodocus, which is one of the longer necked of the dinosaurs, could have held its head up with the gravity alone of the weight of its neck. So that leads to, maybe there was less gravity. Now, there seems to be a correlation between planet size and the amount of gravity. I mean, supposedly the largest gravity of any of the planets is Jupiter, and that's a gas planet, mainly gas. So there seems to be a correlation to planet size and planet gravitational forces. So if the dinosaurs really look like that the physics would not support their size under current gravitational conditions, then one goes, gee, was the Earth one time maybe a little bit smaller? Now, one of the things that geology has identified is that there was once one continent called Pangaea, and that owing to tectonic plate movement, that the part, this continent ripped apart, and you can even you can clearly see that there was continent because we can fit the pieces together and create Pangaea again. But now we have the theory of what created this ripping. Now, there is a model called the expanding planet model that is about the Earth expanding. And I'm going to read a little bit, and it comes from Cliff High, who is actually a pretty smart guy. And what could have created the ripping apart of the continents from one into the many, and because this theory means a planet grew larger, means that gravitation today is more than it was then. So with less gravity, we could have the size of the fauna or dinosaurs that we had in those days, and also the flora or the size of the trees being posited as a concept in this video. So a quick read from, wait, I could have sworn, yeah, Half Past Human. Okay, Expando Planet Model. The Expando Planet Model is a subset of the Expando Universe model of reality, which we will return to in a bit. We start with Einstein, much discussed and debated E equals mc squared equation. Now, again, when you've ever seen any of our Dan Winter things, there is a self-organization, and the universe is actually not entropic, but negentropic. So it gathers energy to itself, and much of that has to do with the spin of vortices. And vortices, just like a tornado, will take whatever's around them and pull them into them, and therefore create growth. So in Einstein and Newtonian understanding of physics, energy transformed to matter and vice versa. Okay, so energy transforms into matter. So if you twist on uranium in just the right way with energy, it will transform it, a bunch of its own matter, into energy very rapidly. Thus, we have nuclear plants and bombs based on this principle of exciting the matter of uranium to convert into energy. Well, in this universe, equations work both ways. So theoretically, we could take a bunch of energy and condense it into matter, assuming we knew how. This matter could be as dense as version as we desired, given that we are condensing it out of energy. So we would initially get simple molecules such as hydrogen and helium. But if we persisted, we could continue to coagulate the energy into denser molecules like oil or iron or gold. And thus is explained how the whole alchemy transmutation thing works by condensation. So in the expando planet model, the continuous stream of energy from the sun goes not only to the surface of the planets, but also to the center of the planets, where, given the correct conditions and the existence of an active plasma core, and now plasma is living energy. I mean, that's where the ether kind of derives, is part of, and much of what Dan Winter in his brilliant work is describing. So Mars, as an aside, has none and is therefore a dead planet. Plasma is part of a living planet. This energy is transmuted into matter. Note also that plasma is a great form of energetic antenna. Actually, in laboratories, seems to draw energy to it via sympathetic resonance. This is because it is shareable, as Dan Winters constantly is telling us. So some of the energy of the sun hit the surface of the Earth, but energy at levels we cannot detect without really working at it go to the center of the planet, where they are condensed by that plasma environment into matter. By the way, the plasma model would allow for a faster spinning core and a reducing magnetic field, as the field strength is not dependent on size nor spin rate. And further, the plasma core idea does fit with the observable fluctuations in magnetic field strength over these nearly 12,000 year cycles. And again, plasma core idea works with heat levels internal to the Earth. Lower you go, hotter it gets, as well as abiotic oil and creation of minerals, as well as their location of their deposits. So, since magic likely is not how the core of the Earth generates the magnetic field we observe, it would seem more likely that the explanation is the core of the Earth is plasma. Plasma is highly excited energy and does develop prodigious magnetic fields, all out of proportion to its size. All of the observable magnetic effects on Earth can be explained with plasma core idea. Also, human experience with plasma fields and forms in laboratories provides observable evidence of the electromagnetic effects every bit as variant as seen on the Earth. So in the expando planet model of thinking about Earth, the plasma core gets energy steadily from the sun, and as a necessity must convert the steady stream of energy into matter. Thus, if the expando planet model is correct, one of the predictable effects would be that the planet would pretty much consistently grow. And that is also what observable manifesting reality demonstrates. Earth is slowly growing. Even mainstream science and mainstream media acknowledge this, though they never say why it should grow continuously if the core of the Earth was actually iron. Oh well, anyway, the plasma receives energy from the sun at the core of the Earth, converts it into matter, E = mc squared, and so then two logical questions then arise. If energy is being transformed in the middle of the Earth, then where does it go? And what happens to this whole matter creation mechanism if there is a sudden burst of energy from the sun? Okay, so I'll leave it. Oh, wait. Mainstream science has always maintained that the planet grows slowly over time, even without addressing why this should be the case. Further, the whole point of plate tectonic theory is propelled by this idea of slow movement of the plates creeping about a liquid magma. Though against the idea of entropy, the cooling of planet over time and the rotation of supposed iron core, the whole of plate tectonic theory fails to hold up. So I'm just going to leave it there. Now, again, that's the word of entropy, which is the model that we build our thing on. And basically, plasma physics is based on negate entropy. So rather than a cooling earth, which should contract or do opposite, we have a hot core. How's it staying hot? Because it's still collecting energy. What does it do with some of this energy? It turns it into matter. And that would explain why Pangea broke up. And also, if that's why the expanding earth is why the continents broke up, then we don't have a subduction theory of India crashing into Asia and creating Himalayas. Instead, we have something like the theory in this video that in fact that they're a combination of old trees, because there were two there. He also did, I don't have the picture, but there's also the picture of a tree that, like, say, is hit by lightning, and then you have these jagged edges, or it's blown over by the wind, and you have these jagged edges. And then he shows the morphology of these non-cut tree stumps and many of the mountain ranges, that the morphology is identical. So I'm telling you, you have to watch this video. It's not so that you need to believe it. You need to see the case presented to just really take a little trip through the cosmos. Okay, I'm going to take a breather here, Shelley, and let you go.
Well, I really like where you were going with all that, and the fact that it ends up with plasma, and that we're actually really talking about negentropy, I think is so very useful, because what we are really doing is constructing a new paradigm, and something that resonates with truth. Not only resonates with truth, but is certainly more coherent with everything that we know in the combination of not only all the sciences, but the religions, the spirituality. The kingdom of God is within, for example. So really, all of this information, when we take it back down to the plasma, is that why would you want to spend time looking at this video? Why would you want to expand your mind to be able to contemplate, gee, maybe something other than what we've been taught is in fact closer to our truth? And does our truth also expand? Does our consciousness also expand? Have we gone from the greater consciousness into a denser place? And now we're bringing that light, literally grounding it here and expanding once again our consciousness. So what does this tell us? What I see as very evident is that it would be such a stronger alignment with your own truth if you just let it register, listen to it, meditate on it. If you don't meditate, just consider it, feel it in your body. That could just take us into phonons and photons and who we really are and who our great creator really is. Mm-hmm. But all of that information is contained in light. And every person on this planet has access to it. So I really love how you tied that back into the plasma at the core. I think that in itself should open a lot of doors for people. That's awesome that you put those things together.
Well, okay, thank you. So to me, it was just like, that's what this, because of my wide studies, we'll call it, one of the things for me that was missing were some of things like the expanding earth model as a concept to throw in the middle of this. Also the, like how old some of these trees might be. Millions of years of age. And one of the things that what he's saying is wood that generally rots, or if you put it in an anaerobic situation, that is where there's no oxygen, it's preserved. Mm-hmm. But so when you pull it out, it's like the wood that fell down there. It doesn't turn into petrified wood. And that's one of the things he's showing is, excuse me a second.
You're muted.
What he shows is some petrified wood, and not only that these petrified, the other thing is these sections of petrified wood look like they were cut with a chainsaw. Mm-hmm. Who was cutting wood with a chainsaw millions of years ago? Or at least, even if it was a pull saw, I mean, these are modern cuts. These are cut like you would cut a tree before you split it. If you've ever seen any of the, I mean, I would have to go through the video to pull all this up, and we don't have time for that. But when he shows some of the stones in these petrified, I mean, it's all kinds of semi-precious stones, all silica-based semi-precious stones in the quartz family. So if trees, which are now carbon-based, I mean, I guess there's some possibility of them turning into silicon-based, but what about the concept that once upon a time, the botanicals or the flora were silicon-based? And one of the things that hit me as I was watching this was one of the holdovers from like 300 million years ago in modern world is a little herb, which is much smaller than it used to be, probably because of gravitation. It's called horsetail or equisetum. Eki means horse. And so equisetum is actually a silica-based plant. Matter of fact, if you powder it, because it has silica, the powder has a hardness of 7. Now, most granite, sandpaper granite has a hardness of 8. So this grinding stone, anything under a 7 hardness is capable of grinding. And this is just from the powder of a plant. So that's how much silica is in equisetum or horsetail. So if this plant is kind of a miniature of what used to grow, and as I say, this used to be a tree size. What's now an herb used to be tree size. So now what tree size are, I mean, if you can extrapolate what might have happened, maybe owing to an expanding planet and greater gravity. But if the trees themselves were silica-based, then when they fell to earth and could mix with other things, they would produce silica-based gemstones or petrify rather than rot. I mean, right now, if a tree falls over and is exposed, it will rot. It doesn't turn into petrified wood. So this is one of the things we're playing with. How does wood that's been laying out in the open petrify itself rather than being eaten and dissolved and just generally decomposing? So these are some of the lines, questioning lines of thought that are brought up in this video. Another one that is brought up is the fact that like Grand Canyon and other the magnificent canyons all over the world, he posits as a theory that these are the remains of old quarries, including, and he shows some concave walls on some of these canyons. Now, how does erosion create? And then he shows a modern quarry with modern digging machines, and there's the same morphology again. He'll show you a modern quarry, and then on a larger scale, he'll show you a canyon all around the world, and they look identical. I mean, it's not they look a little bit alike, they look just like each other. And also another interesting thing is that a lot of these canyons have, a lot of these gorges have islands in their center. Like for some reason, as if like the rivers that ate away everything else for some reason created something in a center. And he's saying that no, these center places are where these massive pieces of machinery sat as they scooped out the walls. And so these kind of these places that the machines sat in are what these little mountains in the middle of these gorges are. It doesn't have to be true, but it's not ridiculous to play with the concept. That's the whole idea, is to play with these, entertain them, be open to the considerations, because they make as much sense as a lot of the other explanations. The reason why a lot of people think this makes no sense, science has already explained it, that's because we've accepted it. Basically,
paradigm.
Yes, or AK religion.
Well,
just like religion, yes, just like religion has adherents, science has adherents. Mm-hmm. What does adhere mean? It means to stick. What does sticking means? It means you're stuck.
Right. I like the idea of the silica in the past and the changing into carbon, and I like the fact that it also opens us up to the potential of the fact that our DNA is changing again. And as we take on more light and more information, we are increasing that change in our DNA. And this is something that not just the Vedas, but all of our ancient mythologies spoke about. And this is also something that's giving us current data in the cosmos today. The exact same thing. And when I keep coming back to those dendrites, you showed pictures of it along the edge of those tree stumps or the craters, whatever you want to call them. Those are dendrites, I'm telling you. And what is a pine tree? A pine tree, with with the pineal, the pine cone. I mean,
Right.
really, I think these are just big, big spotlight showing us where to start exploring to find our answers to this question. And why is it coming to us now? Potentially because we have increased our consciousness enough to be able to grasp the concept and start connecting some of those dots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, and even for the antiquity of men, not only did the Vedas place them there, but we have now one of the things that Michael Cremo, who speaks of forbidden archaeology, one of the things that they find is like when they sometimes go into coal mines, and that could be another theory in itself. They find modern human skeletons in the seams of the coal mines. So,
Right.
you know, in the seams of coal that supposedly was formed from, you know, decaying matter millions of years ago. So if these seams, if geology is correct on the age, that's the other thing, you know, but whatever age that geology is saying that these seams are, and usually they're putting them at like you know, from the Carboniferous period, which I think goes back like 300 million years ago. If you're finding human skeletons in the same period that this original organic matter then turned into coal, a modern human skeleton, well then what age is that skeleton? If these people are digging through the earth, through these layers of geological layers and finding modern human skeletons, what does that tell us about how old we are? And now this might not be a continuous line, but at least iterations of humanity on this planet, because there are certainly, with the Vedas, there were periods of the earth being destroyed. One of the things that's spoken of in this video is that one of these destructions of the earth was by fire, whether from the heavens or whatever, that burnt 99% of the forest on the earth. That's an extinction level event. It would also throw, and apparently that threw massive amounts of carbon into the air, which might have forced whatever could grow at that time to convert from silicon to carbon-based, because it was just so prevalent at that time.
I like it. I like that it expands the potentiality, that it encourages us to think a little bit outside of what was given to us to accept. I like the fact that it really highlights the fact that the cosmic brain, the human brain, and the cell brain are all representing the same story. I think that's great confirmation right there.
So this will go up on GMOP TV first before, I mean, everything eventually gets over to the ModWiz channel. And GMOP doesn't do comments, and we don't put like links and stuff. So I can't really link this. That's why look for No Forest on a Flat Earth. And really enjoy the presentation. It's an hour and 20 minutes, and it's fascinating. And so I'd like to say, God bless you all for now. And Shelley?
Oh, look forward to seeing you all again very soon.
Thank you. Be well.